Westbrook taketh away, as we saw late in the fourth quarter, Eric, because it was bad shots, bad turnovers, bad fouls, bad Westbrook, and then it was Dame time as he knocked down one of the craziest shots that you will ever see in a game. He wins the game. He gets 50 on the shot. Oh, and by the way, he ends the series and gets to wave Westbrook goodbye after they had one of the better first-round rivalry type of series that you will see. So, Eric, let's talk about this first from the Blazers side of this. What did you think of Lillard's shot to close that game out with a tie score, 115-115? Lillard gets the ball with a lot of time left and then takes a 37-footer to end it.
Well, look, Paul George has taken a lot of crap in the media this week because in the postgame press conference when he was sitting next to Russell Westbrook and he talked about the fact that that was a bad shot. Hey, I'm sorry, media, but Paul George is right. That was a bad shot. If you're in any league, whether it's peewee basketball, whether it's junior high, high school, and you have 15 seconds on the clock as you're coming up with the ball, and you milk that clock all the way to have 1 second left so that you can fire up a shot from 37 feet, any coach in the league, no matter what league you're in, is going to be furious about that because that's not a good shot. Paul George had him covered. He played good defense. He had his hand up. That shot was a bad shot if you're looking at the fundamentals of basketball. You can't say that the ends justify the means in this case. Okay, so Dame makes that shot. That makes it a good shot because it went in, but that doesn't make it the right basketball shot. I was sitting there yelling at my TV because I wanted to see the Thunder lose. I'm not a Trailblazers fan by any stretch, but I just want to see the Thunder lose. And I'm thinking, why are you taking so much time? I mean, are you just going to overtime? Is that your strategy here? He fires that up. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, he's going to brick that if it even hits anything. And it goes straight in. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, he just got so lucky on that shot because Paul George, media, you're wrong. Paul George is right. That was a terrible basketball shot. It just happened to go in. But on the flip side of that, Lillard, 50 points. He was the best point guard in this series. I mean, I'm sorry, but he was.
Yep.
This series was the most fun 4-1 series that I might have ever watched because it was contentious the whole time. You had players barking at each other. You obviously have two superstars in Russell Westbrook and Paul George on the team that only won one time out of the 5 games. You have guys like Lillard who barely ever get talked about in this league, and he's thrown up 50 points and taken the Trailblazers to the second round. The guy is a much better point guard than people even give him credit for. I thought it was a great series, and I thought the better team won.
I actually got to soften my stance a little because I thought, too, watching it at first, that it was a bad shot. But then when you look at the statistics that he was 8 of 12 from 30-plus feet in this series, he might be right.
Don't give me that.
I mean, if that's his comfort level,
what is he, Steph Curry?
Look, what's funny is looking back in February of 16, Steph Curry hit a shot in Oklahoma City with 0.6 of a second left that was almost from the same distance. So this isn't new for Oklahoma City. This one just happened to be a closeout type of game and ended their season. So was it a good shot for most people? No. I mean, if you or I are out there and we're chucking it from 37, I mean, we're probably going to get benched.
I wouldn't have hit anything, first of all. Actually, I probably would have hit the middle of Paul George's hand with that shot.
or hit him in the center of his head or something when the ball slipped out. If that's where he feels comfortable at, no one really questions Steph's range. Now, if he misses it, yeah, you're right. It just looks completely stupid. But, Eric, I just felt like when Paul George saw him at like 3 seconds still at the logo, I felt like he should have attacked him right then and got up on him and forced him to take a really bad shot because at that point, he's not going to blow by you and be able to get a set. He's going to hit something where he's on the move or some kind of runner from 20-some feet. I just felt like he laxed on him.
Can I tell you why he didn't do that? And you can maybe tell me if I'm right or wrong because you know basketball way better than I do, but I can tell you why he didn't do that. Because these stinking refs would allow Lillard to jump into him from the logo and take 3 foul shots to win the game.
I'm not saying to jump like attack. I'm saying close the gap. Because if you watch the tape, if you go back through and watch it with about 3 seconds left, Lillard, it's literally in the white on the logo of the Blazers court, and Paul George is a good 4 feet away. What I'm saying is I would have liked to see him close that gap.
Yeah.
And if he steps to the side, you just go straight up, unlike in the Virginia game where he jumps into his space. You just try to make it a harder shot when you're closer. Paul George, really by the time he extends his arm, Lillard's already sidestepped to the right, and gotten a clean look.
I mean, I agree with you. I just think what you see in the NBA now is a lot of these offensive players, they know when they're in a situation where they can jump forward and get the foul call.
That's the only thing I see that Paul George could have done differently in that point, is just when he saw the clock running down, he knows that under 4, that Lillard's not going to be able to drive on him because of how he's playing and how far away he is, that he's going to pull it up. So just try to close the gap and make it as difficult as possible on him. And I felt when Lillard sidestepped to the right, Paul George really couldn't recover and kind of jump. But I think if you probably saw from the other angle, Paul George's hand is not even close to the ball at that point. But Eric, let's look at this from the Thunder side, because they have kind of a mess here going on. They have 2 of probably the top 10 players in the league. But we've talked about Russ. As much as I like Westbrook and the style that he plays, we had this question on the show last year of who would win a title first, Harden or Westbrook, and we both agreed it was probably going to be Harden just because of Westbrook's style. It's always 100 miles an hour. If it's a tie game, if they're down 40 or if they're up 40, he doesn't ever stop playing. And I felt like in the fourth quarter of Game 5, all he had to do was play more at 60 miles an hour, and they probably win that game and get a Game 6 back in Oklahoma City. And instead, he just goes 100 miles an hour. Even the last possession was him forcing a bad take, and it gets missed. And then the Trailblazers get the ball and get it in transition. They don't call timeout. They never even got to have that conversation on the Thunder bench about how they wanted to defend it because Westbrook missed such a bad shot. Can the Thunder ever win with Westbrook, or are they just going to have to live with this where they're going to have pretty decent regular seasons, but when they get in a 7-game series, until he changes his mindset, and it seems like he's not going to based off some of his post-game comments and even comments the day after, is this team ever going to be able to really compete in the West?
Yeah, I'm not sure anymore. This has nothing to do with Eric's previous hate of Russell Westbrook stealing the MVP and all that stuff. I'm over all that. I watched Russell Westbrook and Paul George, honestly, this year. And look, Paul George was having sort of an MVP caliber season until his injury. So I thought this team could really make a move. But you're right. Russell Westbrook just has a style that I don't want to say it's selfish. I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far, but I'm not sure it really works either for team basketball. If you put Russell Westbrook on any college team, if you put Russell Westbrook out in, a street hoops tournament, there's not going to be anybody that's going to be better than Russell Westbrook because he's going to provide such fireworks and such a spark that it just can't be overcome. But this is the NBA.
Right.
You have teams that have rosters filled with guys that have different talent sets. And so in a 7-game series, Russell Westbrook might get his. He might get a triple-double. He might score 40 points one night. He might have a 16-assist night one night. But that's going to be game in and game out where one game it looks good this way. One game it looks good this way. That's fine, but that's not team basketball. And so I think that's what's breaking the Thunder down here in these playoff series because in the West, you've got the Warriors, you've got the Rockets, you've got up-and-coming teams that I think are going to be even better in future years. I'm surprised the Jazz didn't do better this year, to be honest with you. I'm surprised Denver has struggled a little bit, but those teams aren't going away. And so if you're the Thunder, I think you got to be a little bit concerned by the fact that you've now invested in Paul George, or he's invested in you as well, and Russell Westbrook seems to be the leader, but it's not getting you anywhere. I mean, year in and year out, it's not getting you anywhere. And I just don't see that situation improving.
Westbrook took 31 shots in Game 5 of this series, and he was 11 of 31. Meanwhile, Paul George is 14 of 20. Westbrook took 11 threes. He hit 4 of them. He just takes 5 to 8 bad shots a game. That's really what he's got to fix. Everything else about his game, you can work around. What you can't work around is 5 to 8 wasted possessions a game that should go to other guys. You had Grant 7 for 8 in that game. Adams was 5 for 8. Ferguson 1 for 1. Schroeder 7 for 10. Their main guys shot the ball extremely well. They shot it 55% from the floor, even with Westbrook going 11 for 31. He had plenty of help in this game. He shot them and took them out of this game. He got them to lead because he got hot, hit a 3, got a layup, hit a 3, got them rolling. And then, Eric, it was just bad shots, bad threes, bad turnovers, just playing too fast, and then just dumb fouls that you always hear with basketball. What do you do when you have a lead? You don't foul and stop the clock and let teams get points when the clock's not running. A leopard can't change his stripes, or a leopard can't change his spots. Whatever one it is, a leopard can't change it, and it feels like Westbrook can't change the way he plays. He's been in this league far too long. He's been in these playoff games. He's had no success since Durant left. And he continues to do the same stuff. He did it in Utah last year where he took 40-some shots in that game and they had no shot. And he did it again in Portland in game 5. He just took 5 to 6 shots that should have went to either Paul George or Dennis Schroeder in that game. And instead, he did play offensively selfish. And until that changes, until he can take regular season Westbrook where he's looking to get other guys going and he can keep himself in the mid-teens for shots, they're not going to have success in the playoffs. Don't tell me that they don't have talent on this team. I don't want to hear it. You can't have a guy that's a top 5 MVP candidate and another one in Westbrook that's probably in that 6 to 10 range where he would get voted. You can't have 2 guys that high in the league, 2 top 10 players in the league, and complain you don't have talent. You went out and you got Schroeder, you've got Grant, you've got Adams, you've got talent on this team. It's up to Russ to make better decisions, especially late in games. It's going to make or break this team. And look, they've got a lot of questions on there's not a lot of wiggle room in this roster, not when Steven Adams is on the books for 2 more years at $25+ million a year. So unless they can move him and get maybe 2 more guys out of it, this is the roster that they're going to have going forward, Eric. So they better figure out a way to fix Westbrook, because the other problem is, we talked about this early on, when teams get a guy and they don't know what to do. It's almost like the band geek in a movie that gets the head cheerleader, and he's just constantly doing whatever to try to keep her. That's what it feels like the Thunder's trying to do to Russ. They accommodate him in every way possible. They let him act like a total ass in the media, and they continue to enable him. And if you read some of the stories that are out there about their PR department and upper management, it seems like that's one of the selling points of the Thunder. It's like, come here, we'll protect you from the media. You can next question reporters. You can give half-assed answers. You don't have to really do your job. We'll protect you. We'll keep those guys away from you. You won't have the press chasing you around in parking lots or trying to make relationships with you. Even back to the Durant days, they did this stuff. And Eric, I just think that they have to find a way to scale Russ back a little bit. And if it comes down to it that he doesn't want that, you've got a hell of a trade asset that you might have to move him, because you're not winning with him. And even you're starting to see Paul George do the next question thing and not answer guys. And he's never done that. But if he sees Russ doing it, he's going to feel like he can do it as well.
Yeah, and the other thing, just the last point on this, I'll say, is as I watched that game 5, the one thing I was really disappointed in is not only his shot selection, but there's a lot of times when he's standing around behind the arc. The only other guys in the league I'm really okay with taking the amount of volume of shots that Westbrook takes are guys like Curry and Thompson, because they'll make so many of them throughout the course of the season that it's worth the risk. But if you watch Curry and Thompson on a regular basis, the one thing you rarely will see them doing is standing around. I think that's a big difference too. And again, I'm not a coach. I'm not a basketball connoisseur in the sense that I know all the fundamentals of the game and the plays and how things work with the switches and everything else. But I do know this. I see Russell Westbrook standing behind the arc and just standing there quite a bit. I don't know if that's because he gets tired, he plays fast, and then he needs a little bit of a break. And so if he's off the ball offensively, he just gets a chance to catch his breath and stand there. But you don't see that with Curry and Thompson that much. So I think it's a mentality that maybe is just not going to win an NBA championship.
Yeah, and it could be coaching too, Eric, where they're going to have to change up their offensive philosophy. Maybe it's too much ISO, pick and roll, get a switch, go ISO, versus a team like the Warriors where it's constant movement. The Thunder are trying to play more like the Rockets style, but they don't have that offensive weapon that someone like Harden has, who has just taken 4 or 5 things in his game and he's made them so good that you just can't defend him. Russ doesn't have that. He really has that downhill. And if you're a defender, you're like, okay, if you want to jack 10, 11 threes a game, we're going to let you do it and not have a problem with it. All right, now let's look at the Eastern Conference, because the 4 teams who we thought would match up, that's the matchups that we've got. We weren't sure early in the year how these 4 teams would shake out, especially with the way Boston was playing. And for a while there, it looked like it could be a Philly-Boston matchup, but Boston sort of picked up the pace. So did Philly towards the end of the year. And now we've got the matchups that we wanted. So the 1-4 matchup will be the Bucks and the Celtics, and the 2-3 matchup will be the Raptors and the Sixers. So let's talk about the first series with the Bucks and the Celtics. Celtics have struggled all year, Eric. They haven't looked that great as a team, but they've sort of picked it up here. They went on that West Coast road trip. They've got much better play from Gordon Hayward. So they got the Pacers in round 1, which may have been a dream matchup for them, because in a 7-game series, when you got to win 4 of them and you're playing a team that is offensively as challenged as the Pacers were in this series with no Oladipo and really no answers for what the Celtics were trying to do. Do you look more at the opponent that Celtics played and judge them off that, or the fact that they got the 4-0 sweep in this series? How do you look at them going into round 2?
Oh, I think both are beneficial. I think you made excellent points there. I think